All right, thanks, Ashley. And you can see my screen okay?
Yes, I can see your screen.
All right, very good. Well, hello, everyone, and thanks for joining. As Ashley said, we're going to spend the next 45, 50, 55 minutes, whatever it works out to be, looking at the different reporting options in and around Dynamics GP. And so if you've seen Dynamics GP or what was called Great Plains back in the day, you probably know that there's more than one way to get to information. And sometimes there's too many ways, but we found over the years that, like most of us, we kind of learn how to do something and we just keep doing it that way until someone tells us to change it. And so, there's been a lot of things added to the system over the last few years and some things that are outside of the system that we can take a look at as well, which we'll do towards the end of the session here. But the important thing is everything you're going to see today is part of the software. So there's nothing here that costs any additional money. So everything is out of the box. These are not add-on solutions or things that you have to go buy. There are a number of those, and especially around business intelligence and that type and style of reporting. So we're not really discussing those today. These are things that that if you own Dynamics GP, you would have access to today. If you don't own GP, then if you did own a copy of it, you would get all of these different options. And so I've logged in. I'm, of course, logged in as the system administrator here and kind of landed on my home page. And so the first thing is kind of the basic, kind of goes without saying, but we'll spend maybe 2 minutes on it, is all the reporting that's inside of GP, kind of what I'd call the off the menu reports. And so if I go to my reports menu, of course I have pretty much every module installed and turned on here with the exception of manufacturing. But I've got project accounting out there. I have payroll and HR and fixed assets. And you'll see as we kind of hover over the different components of the software that there's a number of reporting sub-menus that actually are available off the main menu. And so I pulled a couple of those onto my home page, and so let's just take a look here. With one click, since it is on my home page, I can open any report that would be in kind of off the menu style report. And so here's what I call just a traditional Dynamics GP report. I'm going to make that a little bit larger. This is a payables aging, and so just kind of an out of the box, what I'd call maybe the older style report, where it's really just designed to get something ultimately on paper. And so, of course, I'm printing this to the screen, so it's not going to the paper yet. But there's no drill down or drill back. This is really just data being dumped out in kind of report form. And so these were the original kind of format and style of reports that have been in the system for upwards of 30 years now. And so, but they're a little bit unique in that you can make edits to the report. If you have security, you can click on modify and open the report writing tool that the report was built with. And if there's columns here, discounts and write-offs and things that on the payable side you wouldn't normally deal with, if you want to take those things off the report, or you want to clean up this heading and take some of these criteria off on how the report is being generated, and move things around. Maybe you don't deal with a different currency, and so that's not going to be important, and you want to change the fonts or whatever it might be, you do have control over the layout of the out-of-the-box reports. The other thing that I think, if you've used the system in the past, you probably know and have been doing for many, many years, is you can send the reports out. So if you do generate one of these out to the screen, and it's not required, of course, to go to the screen, you can send it directly to the printer, but I have all mine set to go to the screen for obvious reasons. We can send these out in either PDF or text format. Of course, text format is not the greatest to look at. It's pretty nice to put them into a PDF document, and Dynamics GP will do that if you have some kind of PDF creator installed on your computer. And so it doesn't have to be Adobe, but some tool that creates PDF. There's a bunch of free ones out there. Certainly Adobe works, but it's not free. And so as long as that creator is out there, then GP will generally see that, and then the PDF option will light up. And of course, Dynamics GP would bundle this up into a PDF and attach it to your email client and let you prepare to send it. And so you can send a report out to an email recipient directly from the screen if you so generate it. Or of course, if you do want to get something on paper, then the obvious is to be able to print that report. And of course, any printer that the computer sees, it could be a network printer, it could be a PDF creator. I do happen to have Adobe on here. It could be a printer in another office or around the world. It's really whatever your Windows would see. So the printers that you see in Word and Excel and the other Microsoft products and just your Windows desktop, those are available inside of GP. So Dynamics is not doing anything here other than just pointing back to your Windows print setup. And so that's kind of the first basic, not that much fun style of report, but lots and lots of people still use these kind of internally, and especially kind of in the accounting function, because these are traditionally accounting style reports. So that's really just one way to look at data. And of course, if you do print one of the 12 or 1,500 reports, depending on the modules you have turned on here, if you do print those on occasion or with some regularity, you can pull those onto your home page like I have. So instead of navigating a menu and trying to figure out, where was that report? And, oh yeah, here it is. So you see here, this AP Open in Detail is the one that I have pulled on my home page here. And then the demo one is the second one, the age trial balance with options, up here, -demo. The demo layout is the other one I have on my home page. So the idea is that any of the 12 or 13, 1,400 reports that might be out there can be pulled onto your home page and executed with one click. And so that's really the biggest takeaway, I think, on the GP reports, is you're one click away from that particular style of report. So those are the reports that have been with us since day one, so back into the 80s. The other more intuitive way to capture data or to grab data is the smart list. And if you've used Dynamics GP, then you probably have used this for many, many, many years. And I've opened my smart list here and try not to resize it too much more. So the smart list, as you know, based on your security, has a lot of different views and different windows back into the data. There's a few hundred of these reports that Microsoft built and send with the software, and you can change theirs up, so you can customize theirs to your own liking. You can actually build your own smart list reports from scratch. And so there is a tool that comes with the software, so it's no additional charge, called Smart List Designer. You can use that tool to create your own smart list. There is a third party called Smart List Builder, and that's been popular as well, but Microsoft actually does have their own now. And so, of course, there are some subtle differences, but for the most part, you can design your own smart list with the free tool. So just kind of taking a look at a couple of these options. So we might go in through sales here, and again, keep in mind, I've got no security being applied, so I'm completely free to go and do and gather anything that I like. And so you'll see some of these reports have asterisks behind them. Well, those come out of the box. So those are reports and layouts that Microsoft has built. But here, I've created one on my own. And so that particular report is one that I built as just part of something else, and so it didn't have the star beside it. This is something where we've added some functionality here to track memberships to like a health club or something like that, and so I had to build a report that then would echo that data back. And so back to the out of the box, we might go to maybe customers over their credit limit, for example, and see if we had some, and here we do. And so the data is returned pretty quick back from SmartList, and so this is good. It's kind of a one-way push here from the system out to me, the user. But the unique thing about SmartList is we can do a couple other things with it. And so we could move this out to Excel, for example. So if I just click once on the Excel button, that will take whatever's in the window and push that out into Microsoft Excel and give us a nicely formatted Excel spreadsheet where we can then do something else with the data. And so, of course, once it's over in Excel, this style report is disconnected at this point from Dynamics GP. And so if any of these change, I would have to go re-export that out to Excel, which again is really only a click, but and notice here I've got my decimals on my dollars set up to 5 places. That's just an option. Most people don't do that, but you can do. So so this is a little more helpful because we get the information moved out to us, but if it changes, we have to go either call the accounting folks back and say, hey, can you send me that spreadsheet one more time with current data? And that's a little bit of a nuisance, but some people like these better than the old style reports, kind of the old ones that we looked at with the payables trial balance, where they're really designed to be printed on paper. The other thing we can do with the SmartList data is we do have integration to Word, and so you'll notice that there's a couple of options here that light up. We can send out letters. So in this case, it senses I'm in the customer part of the system, and so it presents customer letters. If I do have the collections management module, then I have the ability to send out collection letters. And so it's sensitive to that. And if we go into the payroll system, for example, and we bring up a list of employees and we use the Word button, well, it's going to sense that we're not in customers anymore, but we're in employees, and bring up a series of letters that I might have out there that are employee-based. And so, and by the way, there's 50 or 60 or 70 of these letter templates, again, depending on which parts of the system you're using, that Microsoft includes. The same kind of general rule. You can use their letter templates if you like. You can create your own from scratch, unlimited. You could change theirs. If you don't like theirs, you could copy it, and you could actually change their template, but you could make unlimited copies and have different flavors and versions and so forth. And so the nice thing about SmartList is that coming from SmartList out into Excel or out into Microsoft Word, there's very good and tight integration there. And so that's a very nice feature that really makes good use of both the Dynamics GP system, so the accounting system, and the other Office products that most of us are pretty familiar with now. And so one more quick look back here, maybe if we go into the sales information. So if I call up my sales transactions, and here we have things like open invoices, and so that's a list of all the open invoices. That's not aged out, so it's not a kind of a hardcore accounting report that we would normally see for open invoices with the aging buckets being applied. But if you just need something that shows data, this is a very quick and easy way to get that information out and available into your fingertips. And so if we go into, and you'll notice there's most of these are Microsoft provided, but if we go into things like this week's invoices, a lot of folks use this. So you might have a CFO or something that has access to the system, and they don't care about all of the nitty-gritty detail and every line item. They just kind of want to see, well, what does this week's billing or invoices look like? And so while you're in SmartList, this has Excel functionality, and so it's very easy to sort on any of the columns. So, most of the time we'd rather see an invoice that's $89,000 than kind of focus on one that was $28. And so a lot of folks tend to sort sales information by large to small, and that gives us a good snapshot of where we stand for, in this case, the week. And so there's many of these here to get us started, but again, we can change any of these up. do anything that we want. And I'll kind of walk you through a quick change of what some of this might look like. And so if I go into my vendors, and let me just pull kind of the vendor demographics out, and so you'll see that returns all my vendor data. And this would be good if I was going to send out a holiday card of some sort. Otherwise, probably not much value to me. You know, I might want to know, well, who are my vendors in a particular state or zip code or something. But other than that, you know, we can't do much with this. So, so how do we make this more of our own and personalize it? Well, we come up under columns, and again, you have to have security to be able to see the data. So not everybody would be able to get to everything. Well, you know, as a user, I don't care about the vendor ID. I'm going to take that off. I don't know what this node is. I don't care about their phone number. I just really want their address information here. And so then I'm going to click on the add button. And maybe I want to pull some things into my smart list, into my query here. And maybe I'll take the 1099 year to date and the type and add that in. And yeah, that looks good. And so in 1099 amount is kind of important. So really when I see the data, I want that right up here by the vendor name. And then let's maybe do something practical and say, well, let's see, do I have their tax ID number? Because if I'm paying these guys, these vendors, and I have to issue a 1099 at the end of the year, if I don't have their tax ID number, then you know, that's going to be a problem. And so I don't really want to wait till January 31st to figure out that I have an issue here. And so you know, I can rearrange the data and query that back and get exactly what I ask for. So there's my 1099 amount here right next to my vendor. And you'll see I've got a lot of zeros. I've got a lot of vendors that, you know, I don't do business with, at least haven't this year. They're not flagged to issue 1099s. And so, you know, that's good. That's kind of in the way. And even in my small data set here, it's still kind of muddy to actually get to what I want. So then what we can do is come up under search and we can say, well, let's see, let's clean this up a little bit. So really what I want to do is see, do I even have a 1099 vendor here? So I'm going to set the list to only report if the vendor is going to be issued a 1099, and I just grab miscellaneous there. Well, okay, but then do I have to issue them a 1099? And so, well, how do we know that? Well, if we paid them more than the $600, so I'll set my second filter on the year-to-date amount and say if it's more than 600, and so that's good. That will narrow the list down. But really, what I want to do is see the practical side of this is, do I have their federal tax ID number? And so I'm going to say here if the tax ID number is blank, and so you know, that's really kind of the problem list that I want to be able to check on. And so when I click OK, those three filters are applied. And so now I have something that I can actually use. Here I've got some people I paid quite a bit of money to, more than the 600. They are set to be issued a tax form. And you know, if I'm going to do that out of the software, I'm going to have a problem. So I don't have the tax number. And so that's good. I want to monitor that now throughout the year. And so we'll say, these guys keep bothering me over here. And so here I'm going to say, we'll just give it a name and we'll call it the August 1099 list, since we'll be able to recognize it. And I can make that available to just myself. So I don't want anybody else to see my work here. I can make it available to people that are kind of similar, so they have the same job type, or maybe it's the accounting department or another payables clerk or whatever it might be. I could give it to everybody in the company, everybody that logs into this company, or system-wide. So I might have 20 companies in the system set up. I'm going to let everybody see this smart list that I created. And so, so I can do that. And really what I want to do is put this on my home page, so I don't have to go run the smart list every time. I just want to go see if there's data out there. And so in doing that, I'll say, well, I want it to show up on my home page as a reminder if the number of records, so in other words, the entries that are in the report here, if it's greater than 0. So if there's even one of these, I want to know about it. And so then I can click OK. and then I can close that. And let me just make my home page refresh here real quick. And so now in my reminders area, we'll have August 1099 list right there. And so I can click on that with one mouse click. Then I can bring that back up onto my screen. And so that lets me monitor that. When I get the tax forms and I get those numbers into the system, these vendors will drop off of the list because they won't fit the criteria of my report anymore. And once the list has no records, once it's 0, then it'll drop off my home page because there won't be anything to display. So that's good, that's helpful, but it doesn't fix my problem, it just identifies my problem. And so from here, I want to again use Word, and we're in the vendor section, so it knows to present vendor letters. And all of the letters that Microsoft has provided, which is actually the list you're seeing, are listed here. If I created 200 more on my own, those would be listed here as well. And so I happen to know that there was already a template to request the W-9, which is what we need to generally send these folks. And so here's my list right from my report window. Well, you know, maybe I just talked to these guys on the phone, they're going to send it over. So there's still a problem, but I'm not going to go to the trouble of sending them a letter. And then, so we'll pare it down to 4. And then, well, how do you want those letters signed? Your contact info, and then finish. And so Dynamics is going to do a mail merge with the Word template and my accounting data and bring up 4 of those letters for me to then send out. And so, and again, these are in Word, so of course this is my company name. You know, whatever I would normally do in Word, I have access to. It's a Microsoft Word document. So, and there's my signature line. All I have to do is, you know, print these, or if I email them or fax them, or however I normally communicate with these vendors, I would take that action and get these out to those folks with, I'm saying there's attached W-9 here, so obviously I have to put that in the fax or the envelope or attachment to email, whatever it might be. So, so that's some of the strength of the integration in Dynamics with, again, some of the Office products. And so in SmartList, spend a little bit more time on that than we will the rest of them, because that one is such a important tool and it's so easy to use. So many people find that they can figure out how to use that in a matter of minutes, and really takes very little training. And so if you're a Dynamics GP user right now and you haven't really dug into SmartList, I would encourage you to do so. We'll actually have a session at some point on how to create your own SmartList from scratch with the free SmartList Designer tool. And so, you know, you can let us know if you want to be on that session as well, and we'll spend a great deal of time on how to actually build your own SmartLists from the ground up. Okay, so then that's the second kind of reporting option. The third one, on my list anyway, is the Business Analyzer. And so you see that here. I'm going to change the focus of my screen so you can see it a little bit better. So here we have some of these kind of dashboard style reports plugged in. So not your traditional report that we've been looking at, but the Business Analyzer is really designed to kind of present more of key performance indicators in dashboard format, in charts and graphs, and those things that are a little easier for most of us to kind of look at, instead of kind of the hardcore nitty-gritty of what might be underlying the actual data. And so I have my Business Analyzer plugged into my Dynamics GP because I happen to be a Dynamics GP user, and so and I have access to this data, but you know, not everybody would, and so I'll show you the Business Analyzer here in a second outside of GP. And so, of course, that report is not very entertaining because there's nothing on it. But there's a lot of different styles of reports that are available in the software. And so here's cash position. Sometimes, you know, a picture is enough to explain where we're headed. Here's cash. So, you know, here's some raw data. and it looks like, we're down a little bit, but still have quite a bit of money, and so that's good. Compared to last year, or this period last year, we had a surge of money, so apparently we're still holding on to most of it, so it's a good sign. Other things, we can overlay dials on here, kind of in speedometer format. This is just kind of an all-up payables aging, as it says. Doesn't give us much detail, but at a glance, we can kind of see where things are. And so the other thing is we call this a heat map, which really is kind of looking at least in my sample data, the year-to-date sales, and we're doing that by state. And so I can very quickly see where we're selling product, and even based on the color, you'll notice way out there in the Pacific Northwest, we don't sell a ton out there. It looks like most of our business is kind of Minnesota, Illinois, and Missouri and Indiana, kind of next a little bit, and some in Michigan. And then based on those color changes, those dollar amounts based on the legend down there in the lower right part of the chart, kind of direct me into it. Now, yes, I could go run a report and show every single sales transaction, kind of like the smart list with the invoices. I could run a big long report that showed by location or by region, all sorts of detail on down to the actual item that was sold on an invoice in the state of Michigan, and wrapped up to one of my salespeople or sales reps. And so I could still go get all of that data, but sometimes we have people in the organization that don't necessarily need quite that much information. Something like this is a sales manager or a C-level executive. This gives them a quick snapshot of what they might want to take a look at. And so there's lots and lots of these. In fact, there's a couple hundred of these style reports that can be pulled in, downloaded and pulled into the system very quickly. And if there's technical people on the call, these are SSRS reports, or SQL Server Reporting Services reports is how these are being generated. And so yet another tool that's available to us to consume reports. And again, Microsoft, you see I've got 5 or so on my homepage here, and these are the ones that you're seeing. But if you look on the left here, these are all of the available reports. And there's a couple hundred. Of course, the reports that are attached to a certain module, they're only going to light up if we have data. So, I've got a whole series of payroll and HR reports. Well, if I'm not doing payroll and HR in the system, obviously those reports aren't going to be very valuable. If I'm not using the sales order entry piece or tracking inventory, then those reports won't have any data. But you'll see that there's a good number, a good amount of these for all of the different modules that we have available. And so sales, inventory, purchasing, payables, financial, employee, kind of payroll, HR, lots and lots of choices here. And so this is a very simple thing to get going. And again, this is out of the box stuff. So I have not touched any of these reports. I haven't modified any of them. I'm purposely kind of stayed out of the box just so people can see that this is the way it comes from Microsoft. And so each user, of course, based on their security, would be able to pull in different reports. So all of us that are looking at this, we all might have different things on our homepage. Now, I have those on my homepage, as I said a minute ago, because I'm a GP user, and that's a component of my homepage that I wanted to plug in there. But not everybody that needs a report information, not everybody is a Dynamics GP user and wouldn't necessarily have business into the software. And so here, I've opened a browser. I happen to open Internet Explorer, but I could have opened Chrome equally as well, and diving in kind of to my Dynamics GP data. And here's my company too, called Fabricam. And remember, there's no security layer here, so I'm wide open to everything. And so I can drill into my company, and then I see all the different components of the system, kind of the different modules, if you will. And so I'm going to drill into financial. Here's a number of financial reports that are available for us. And so, journal entries, trial balance, fixed asset reports that are based on this SQL tool. But really, I'm going to go into the charts and KPIs, and this is really kind of the area we were looking at off my homepage. And so here, if I wanted to run this cash graph, you'll notice that it takes just a few seconds and goes and gets the data, and make that a little bit bigger. And so I'm able to see the same graph now that I was looking at inside of Dynamics. And so, but here, of course, we could do this in GP as well. This is today, but I really want to go back to April and see what did this look like on April 12th. That's really kind of what I'm curious about. And so when I bring that date up, I get a totally different picture of the graph. And so if I flip back to Dynamics GP, because I actually changed that, so let me just, that takes a couple of minutes to refresh, and I'm running this off my laptop, so it might take a couple of minutes longer than what we're going to spend together today. But yeah, I was going to try to force that kind of into a refresh, but it will probably be there when we get back. And so this allows me to kind of move things around and really get a picture of what's happening. And I don't have to be a Dynamics GP user. I don't even have to realize that's what we're using in the back office. I can just run this, and these are connected. So this is live data. Every time I open the report, I'm getting a fresh copy of the report because it's reading the data every time. And so imagine if you needed to look at some of these reports and you were on vacation, although that's probably a bad time to be looking at a ton of reports, but maybe you're traveling on business and you've got your iPad at a conference or a convention and you want to see what sales were for today, or you want to see what cash movement is happening today. Well, as long as you've got a connection back to the Office server, most of us do now, you have access to these reports. And so any device, anywhere, anytime, as long as you have that connection, these reports are available. So you don't have to be calling accounting and say, hey, can you update that report and send it back? I'm about to walk into a meeting. And you tend to get away from things like that make us rely on other people, and especially if it's a time when those people aren't at work. And so this is a very powerful tool because of that. It is real-time information, stays connected, and as the data in Dynamics GP changes, this graph would change instantly. And so this has been a very popular reporting tool for a lot of kind of executive style folks. Because it is a Microsoft product, of course, we can send this data out into pretty much any other format. And so if I needed to do a presentation, maybe I want to put this over into Word. If I had just raw data, not a chart, the raw data would easily move over into Excel. I could put this into a PDF format or document and then grab that and make a presentation or save it, whatever I might want to do. And so lots and lots of choices here. Of course, you can always print these directly from the browser. And so this is not really new, but not a lot of people have taken advantage of. And so we're really trying to make sure that people know that this stuff is out there. If you're a GP user, you own this. Not difficult to deploy. It's and you can sort through a few hundred of these and see if there's something that you like. And of course, we do change these up or show you how to do it. Not everybody likes to use them exactly the way that Microsoft has built them. And so same rule applies. We can change anything here. They're not locked down, anything like that. So let me just look at one more here and more kind of report style. So if we go into the purchasing folder and run an aging kind of like we did off my home page, maybe we'll run this aging by document date. And so here I've got some parameters, that are on the report, and Microsoft put these on. We can add more. So if there's sorts and filters and things that you want to slice and dice up the report or the data that they haven't considered, we can do that. We can show you how to do that. You might have some IT folks that are pretty savvy with SQL reporting that can do that without any help. Perfectly okay. The only thing I have to do here is pick a sort. I'm just going to kind of go with everything else. So I like mine sorted, let's say, by vendor name. And so we click View Report, and it takes just a few seconds to go back and gather the data, check security, and present that back. And so I'll make that a little bit larger. And so here's an aging. Now I picked one that is summarized, so I don't, well, I say that. I think I've got the detail here, so I do. All right, so it's one report. There is another one that is detail only, and so this one's kind of nice because you can see it in summary form, and so that saves a lot of space and real estate on the report and on the screen. But if you need to look into the data, you can expand, in this case, the vendor, and see the actual invoices that are out there. And of course, my data is all fairly old now, so it's all aged out way over on the right. But lots and lots of information here, and very easy to deploy, very easy to give people access, and very simple to change these up to your own liking, or really even to create new. There's some wizards now that you can create a lot of these new and on your own. And so this is really part of that business analyzer that is plugged inside of my desktop client here. The third piece of this is a business analyzer that runs as an outside application, and so that was open on my other screen. And so here's Business Analyzer, just running as its own app. And so I don't, if I don't like to go into the browser and click on a button, I don't have to. I can actually run this little free package, this little free app called Business Analyzer. And by the way, this runs on any device. So if you've got an iPhone or an iPad or Android tablet or phone, and you want to see these charts and graphs connected to your Dynamics GP data, easily done. So you could go right now into the if it's Android, you could go into the Play Store or the Windows Store or your Apple Store, and you could search for the Business Analyzer, and you could download that and put it on your mobile device right now, and it would actually pull in some sample reports, because obviously it's not connected at that point to anything, but you could see kind of some of the samples that are available out there, kind of like you're seeing on my screen. And so these are the types of things that we can do with the Business Analyzer piece. And of course, you can drill. I just double clicked on that. You can drill into any of these reports and kind of take a look. You can see different views that are built in, and these are all the same reports that you saw on my Dynamics desktop screen and in my browser. It's the exact same tool. And so the Business Analyzer kind of little app just makes it look a lot more flashy. And so there's some additional capabilities that that Microsoft can push out to the mobile platform. And so, if I want to look at travel and entertainment against budget for particular months, lots and lots of options here, and you're seeing kind of the new version of the Business Analyzer, and this would be the one that is in your mobile store that you could download and take a look at. And so feel free to do that. Obviously there's no cost, and even if you're not a Dynamics GP user today, you can still download this app and install it in just a couple of minutes, and you can see kind of some of those things that are available for you in this tool. And so okay, so that's kind of the third style report. So we talked about the traditional reports, the smart list, the Business Analyzer style reports. Next on the list is Microsoft Excel, and so that probably will not be a shock to anyone. So we're looking at a Microsoft product, and I think we all know who makes Excel. So Microsoft has spent a good amount of time hooking Dynamics GP data to Excel. And so as I kind of toggle off my home page here and move over into kind of my subledgers, so to speak, into the financial and sales, purchasing and whatnot, as I do that, you'll notice in every module, I have an Excel reports option here. And so this goes and gathers up the reports for this particular module. So I'm in financial, so financial meaning like general ledger and fixed assets and banking system, bank reconciliations and so forth. And so you'll see these Excel links here, and the ones that say reports are the actual reports we can run. These are just sitting out on a drive somewhere. And so the same kind of rule applies as my business analyzer. I'm looking at these inside of GP only because I'm a GP user. I could browse out to this location on this, in this case, it's my C drive. I could browse out to that location, and based on security, I could run that Excel report. I don't have to be a GP user. I don't even have to know that Microsoft Dynamics is what's funding and fueling all of this. None of that. I could just go get the report and open it up. Every module comes with a dashboard that we can use. And so here I'll just kind of show you the sample financial dashboard. And you know, we can use these, same rule, we can use these, we can change them up, we can build our own. I'll show you one in here in just a minute, one that I built. So here's just a kind of a simple financial dashboard, kind of just gives us a snapshot of what's going on under the hood. So where do things stand? So kind of a little miniature P&L here, graph of my expenses, a bar chart of the major components of profit or loss, my checkbook balances, and then some ratios. And again, there's multiple tabs here, so we can tab through. Here's everything that rolls into net income, kind of by GL account, what rolls into revenue, cost of goods, my operating expenses, and so forth. But because this is an Excel, the difference between this and SmartList is SmartList, once it goes to Excel, it's disconnected. And so we have to refresh those SmartLists every so often. These dashboards and reports are hooked, much like the Business Analyzer reports, well, exactly like those. They are live in the data. So every time we open this dashboard, it's live. And if we do data refresh in Excel, we get an update of what's happening in Dynamics GP. And so here, if I want to say, well, what was happening second quarter 2015, I can toggle back. This is just an Excel feature. It's not anything to do with Dynamics. And so now I have mine set to quarters, but you'll see here I can set to many other different components of the period here. But the power of this slider bar is I can drag this around and the system will immediately go get that data and present back based on that slider. And so that would be, that would take a couple of reports, no doubt, to actually run and put that on one piece of paper, one report. That would probably take a few reports, and then putting that into Excel and doing some calculations to actually get that consolidation like that. And so that's really the power of using some of these reports in Microsoft Excel. And so let's see, we'll maybe look at just one other one here so you can kind of get an idea of what a non-dashboard report. So this is an Excel refreshable report. And remember, all these are hooked live to the data. So they present real-time information. And so this one is not going to be a dashboard. It's just kind of data. And so if we want things to come out, this will look kind of more like a trial balance, so to speak, but we'll have all of my GL accounts and the transactions. And so, but once it comes into Excel, of course, it's Excel. And so, you know, if we're looking for, maybe we're in, most of my data here is in April 2017. So if I want to see just my April 2017 transactions with a few clicks, you'll notice now that it's filtered down accordingly. And so, and again, I wouldn't have to look at, maybe I just want to see payables and receivables here for whatever reason. And so, you know, very, very easy to actually sort through the data and get to what we want. And so, you know, just kind of no comparison really to printing on a piece of paper and having something that we kind of like, but not really. Just a couple other options here on the Excel reports, and then we'll finish up with the very last topic here. So if I flip over to my sales system. Of course, a lot more reports in sales, what you might expect, because there's a lot more data to report on in sales than there is in the finance system. And again, I have the kind of the factory dashboard, if you will. And so we'll take a peek at that. And then I'm going to show you one that I built during a class last fall, and show you how you can kind of do your own. And sometimes I mess up my data here and get something in there that I shouldn't. So looks like I probably went over a calculation here that I shouldn't have. But so just a simple sales dashboard. And again, we have kind of the Excel slider bar here. So, you know, gives us all kinds of flexibility as far as what we're looking at. But all of these Microsoft dashboards are multi-tabbed. So we get a lot of information really in one spreadsheet here. And so aging and outstanding balances, again, you'll see some of these are just raw data, where others are actually a dashboard. And so there's a combination of both. And of course, we're not hurting anything here. If we happen to delete a row here for whatever reason, that does absolutely nothing to our Dynamics GP data. So they're connected, but we're never writing back. And so we can fool with those and whatever we want all day long, not gonna hurt anything. And so here's a dashboard that I built. This was earlier this year in February. You'll see a couple others that are from late last year, but this was during a class. And so, you know, we did this together in less than an hour. And so it's not pretty, so it's not in final form, but we have all the data there. We really just need to make it presentable now. And so very, very quick to be able to grab this information. And so this, I'm looking at orders by order type. So order, invoice, quote, return, and so forth. And then again, I've got the slider bar there. So that will reset the date information. And so of course, you can see all of that change as we kind of toggle through it. And then kind of scrolling down here, and these are really Excel tools. This is really just raw Dynamics data with things that most of us do every day in Excel anyway. And so here's looking at customer information. I put a trend line in there on Excel, kind of looking at using some of the Excel logic and looking at where's this customer really going. If we were to predict into the future what this customer might be doing, what's Excel kind of suggesting that is happening with this customer. Now, again, that's not, you wouldn't bank on that, so to speak, but it's just kind of using some of the raw Excel logic that's built in to do some trend analysis. And so the idea here, though, is you can do some very powerful things with really very little effort. And so, you know, if you have to create stuff for the boss, so to speak, you can look like a genius, if you will, with very little effort here. And so just show you kind of one in inventory, and just so you kind of get the idea of what we have in inventory. And of course, there's a whole series of payroll reports. And so, you know, here we might say, well, what do we have as far as negative inventory? And so, you know, same idea here. These are not all going to be dashboards that are exciting to look at. Some of these are just going to be raw dumps of data coming out of the system. But you'll notice this few second delay here because the data, we have to go get the data from the GP database. There's nothing stored in Excel except the actual layout of the report. And so, you know, this is not something that opens as if we were just opening an Excel file, because it is hooked live, and so it does take that extra a second or two to actually go back to the server and retrieve the data. And so let's see, maybe just one in payroll so you kind of see. If we were looking maybe of course, payroll, you know, there's lots and lots of information in payroll and HR. So as you would expect, there's lots and lots of reports here. And so, but, you know, we might want to see, well, what's our PTO kind of situation look like, liability, if you will. And again, that should pop up a list here of the people, and I don't have a ton of stuff in my sample data, but you'll kind of get the idea here. We'll have at least a handful or so of people that have PTO balances, and so here the idea is that some these people have PTO hours available. We know their pay rate, and so we can figure out their liability, and of course it's still Excel. We haven't changed that, and we can still pretty this up and make it a nice dashboard that we post out on an internal portal or website or something if we have management that needs to see those types of things. And so that's next to last. The very last one we want to look at is actually outside of the system, but as promised, these are all free, and so these were made by a third party called Jet Reports, and so Jet, they have a paid version, but what I'm showing you is the free version, and so these are just some things that they have built that you can go download for free, and you do have to leave your name and email and contact info, and a salesman will call. So, but they don't pressure you into trying to upgrade. They just want to make sure that everything's working, and if you have any questions, but they do have a more advanced version that allows you to go to a portal and retrieve things, and this is just simple Excel again, and so here's a profit and loss, which most of us don't generally see in Excel, but with a drill back into the actual accounts, so right down to the GL account that is actually rolling up into the sales number. And so, it's nothing we would necessarily publish or hand to the bank, but for internal use, some of these are very nice little add-ons. And again, these are available to you at no cost. And so they just have to be retrieved and installed and of course hooked to your data. Here's a kind of a consolidated income statement, but in this one, Jet has broken out by department the P&L. And so here's accounting, they don't produce anything, so there's no revenue there, there's no cost, but there is overhead, they do cost, and so that's a little different way of looking at a financial statement. And again, these are not kind of hardcore GAAP compliant things, but just more management style. And so we won't look at all of these, but just to kind of give you a flavor of what you could do and what's out there. And these are Excel, and so even though they're free, you can still open these up and change them around. These are not locked down. Here at this presentation, as we have our income statement, we have our budget in another tab, and then what some folks will do is they don't necessarily care about what the numbers are or what they should be. They really kind of manage from the variance. And so, things that are in good shape, we don't really have to pay much attention to. Things that are not in good shape, we might want to dig into. And so, sometimes we'll jokingly tell people all you need to do is have this variance tab and just run your business off the variances. I wouldn't quite say it's that easy, but you kind of get the idea that there are other ways to look at financial data, and again, these aren't to replace your presentation style, balance sheet, profit and loss, and so forth. These are just more internal use options, and so here's just kind of more trial balance format for the year, and you can change up the format if you don't like what Jet has done, but they do give you enough to use, but obviously they are trying to whet your appetite, and if you see something that that is in the paid version, then of course that's when they would like to chat. But the free version, lots and lots of folks use and make good use of. And so here again, kind of using some of the dashboard type functionality, just clicking through if we want to see all of our cash, and not external reporting, but some pretty powerful kind of internal things. So Ashley, I think those are really the topics that we wanted to get through: GP reports, Smart List reports, SQL reports, or Business Analyzer as the app is called, Excel reporting, and then the free version of Jet Reports. And so any questions in the queue or anything that anybody can think of or want to ask about in our last couple of minutes?
Yeah, we actually did receive a few questions. Where can I find Business Analyzer and GP 2017?
That has to be installed. So if you're running GP today, that will be on the installation image. So there's not a CD per se, but if you go back to wherever the image is copied down to where the installs come from, that will be out there and actually should be installed already. An easy way to check is just to go to Start and go under your programs and then your Microsoft Dynamics, and you'll see here Business Analyzer, and so that should install automatically when you install GP. Sometimes people will turn that off, not knowing what it is or thinking they're not going to use it, so you may have to go back to the DVD image and get it, but it could be out there already.
Okay, and another question. We used Advanced Bank Rec from Nolan Business. Can I use Excel reporting to get an outstanding checklist since Nolan doesn't have one?
I don't know why not. That Nolan data is in the GP database, and so that would take an edit of either one of the out-of-the-box reports or a very quick creation of one from scratch, but that data is exposed to Excel just like the Dynamics data, so yes, there'd be no problem with doing that at all.
Okay, the next question is, the Excel lists are not showing in the financial area. Is there another way that you see them?
You can, yes. If you see them anywhere else, so you said financial, maybe you see them in sales, you'll notice that the path is, if they show up anywhere, you'll see the path. Well, the financials would be out in the same path. And so if you don't see them anywhere, the default path is this. It's wherever your Dynamics GP is installed, and typically it goes into the C program files. There's typically an Excel folder. So if you kind of browse around or do a search on your local drive or terminal server drive based on where you're getting the GP from, you should see that out there.
Great, thank you. And this is another question. Where do I find the Business Analyzer for GP 2013?
Same answer. It's going to be on the install image, and it also installed, unless someone turned it off, it would install automatically. So you can go to Start Programs and see if it's out there. If it's not, then find your 2013 install image, kind of the DVD image, and you can click on Setup, and you'll see it in the additional products there, and you can install it.
Great, and then just two more questions. Could you clarify the name of the iPhone app? I'm not finding the Business Analyzer, but I see several other Microsoft Dynamics apps.
That's a good question. I don't have an iPhone, which might not be hard to understand since we're dealing with Microsoft stuff here, but not to get into that. Ashley, if you can collect a contact information connection there, I will find that and we can send that link back out to her or him. I know we have people even in our office, in our company, that have it installed, but I would have to find it. It should be, if you go into the store, it should just be Dynamics, Microsoft Dynamics Business Analyzer or Dynamics GP Business Analyzer. I'm not positive what it would be called, but it is out there.
Okay, sounds good. Yep, I can let you know who asked that. Okay. And then the final question is more of a comment that maybe you could touch on. I understand that SmartList is no longer free as Microsoft does not own it or manages the rights to it.
SmartList is free. It's still bundled as part of the solution, but SmartList Builder is a third-party product, and that is not free. That's a couple of $1,000s for SmartList Builder. SmartList itself is free. But when Microsoft disconnected SmartList Builder and it went back to where it came from, so to speak, so now there's a price tag on it. Microsoft created SmartList Designer, and SmartList Designer is free, and it's very similar to SmartList Builder. Obviously, there are a few things Builder does that Designer doesn't, but if you're in SmartList and you click on the new button, that means you have, or if you see the new button, that means you have Designer installed. And if you're on a more current version, 2013, 15, or more current, you will see SmartList Designer. It should install out of the box, and that is the free tool. So you do still have the ability to create your own smart list from scratch, just with Designer instead of Builder.
Thank you, Bryan. And that looks like that's it for questions today. If people do have some more questions, I'll be sending out the recording this afternoon. And you can always ask us in the follow-up email.
All right. Well, thanks, Ashley, and thanks everyone for attending.
Thank you. Have a great day.